Hello, welcome to Waiting for Game, podcast presented by Melee Stats. I'm your host, Gimme That Weed, and this week we have oh my god, is it a super major episode? I think we're calling it. I personally would call it a major episode, but you can call it whatever you want these days, apparently. But we've got a big episode in front of us, and to talk about what we have, we brought on someone who we think is just gonna be perfect for the episode. Probably one of the most intelligent, one of the most thought-provoking content creators out there. Of course, I'm talking about my good friend Edwin Budding. How's it going, Edwin?
It's going great, man. I had a great weekend. I am ready to have a great week. Just we got a lot in Melee coming up. We got some fun events that happened last weekend too, and I'm really excited to not just talk to you, but also talk to our guest this week and the gracious man who's housing me this Wednesday night. Radar, it's so wonderful to have you on the show again. I'm super excited to talk about Melee with you, to break down this event, everything that's going on with it. Talk about last weekend too. How you been, Radar? How you feeling?
Yes, I'm doing pretty well. It's funny when you say Wednesday, it's like literally tomorrow. It's like this is a contractual agreement. I get one podcast episode and you get one bed.
No, I
So
didn't get anything out of this. Come
I
on.
know it's messed up. It's messed up. You got your little funny dig at the beginning though, so it all works out.
I don't know what you're talking about. I I think that I agree with that, and it's going to be a very fun episode. We got a lot to talk about. We got Battle of BC. Obviously, is going to be the main thing. Probably, if you're talking about tournaments, this is probably the largest one in terms of top level talent since Collision. Maybe you could even make the argument that this is the biggest since Genesis. And there's obviously a lot of reasons as to why. But before we get into that, let's also talk about something with a kind of dubious title of a major. Let's talk about what happened this past weekend at Low Tide City in Texas. So this is I believe this is the third year that they've run this specific LTC, not the other LTC, and definitely not the other LTC. And it's always had a bit of a larger, like cultural moment than it maybe has actual tournaments. But yeah, this is, for all intents and purposes, an event that had multiple people who could be considered in the top 10. And I think the interesting thing is that at the end of it, neither of them were the ones who won. And we saw someone who hasn't won a tournament at this level, basically, with Salt winning her first big regional, micro major, whatever we're calling these nowadays. Radar, I don't know. Did you get to catch any low tide this past weekend?
I actually didn't. This past weekend we had a lot of family stuff, so unfortunately I haven't had that much time.
Any
It was,
birthdays?
pardon?
Any birthdays?
Two birthdays.
Wow,
So
that's
and
true.
a friend visiting from
There
out of
were two
town. So
birthdays.
so we had we just had a lot going on. So I actually wasn't able to watch any of it. I did hear that Salt won, but unfortunately that wasn't an event that I was totally caught up on.
Edwin, Radar had two birthdays on his end. How many did you have this weekend?
Oh, I had about two this weekend also. Just two people I knew
Yeah,
that had
yeah. Two
birthdays.
people I knew had a birthday this weekend.
Hmm.
Crazy
Coincidentally,
how that
I'm
works.
1 year older. I don't know if you changed your age this past weekend, Edwin.
Oh, that's really funny. I changed my age also. I was 1 year older as well.
Also, the
I
most
guess I am
alien,
every year.
the most alien way to say you had a
Yeah.
birthday. I changed my age. Yes, I changed my age as well. Yeah. I set you up for that. I don't think I know how to talk today, which is fine. Yeah. Did you? I know that you had birthday festivities going on. And I know that you were out and about. You were eating cake. You're doing all that. But I don't know. Did you get a chance to see any of Low Tide?
Yeah, I did, and I have one thing to say for the whole weekend. Okay, and this is my big takeaway. All right, I'm gonna build it up with something. Salt has been one of the most fun players to see rise over the last 2 years. You talk to played her. You watch her play, and it's so clear that all the talent and all the potential is there, right? Last year, when I wrote a column on the best free agents in Melee, I split it up into different categories. And one of the things I said with Salt was that if an organization wanted to invest in a player that may not be top 10 right now, but in a year and a half could barrel their way into that conversation and suddenly become at the suddenly enter the forefront of the scene. Salt was a good long-term investment in terms of it's like in sports, if you get someone that can be a superstar, the best way to get them is to get them right before they become a superstar, but on a rookie contract or on a value deal, right? And I think as of lately, we're seeing Salt like kind of reach this really exciting stratosphere of play, right? So a ton of her old weaknesses that she used to have as a player, like Fox used to be a really big problem matchup. She won Bemi over Billy Bo Peep. That's a pretty good that's a pretty good way to address that. That's a pretty good measurable result to show that she's worked on one element of her game. And now I just want to say beating Axe twice in a year is one thing, but beating Lod 4 times in a row? Who beats Lod 4 times in a row in the same weekend? Has Zane done that? I'm sure he has at some point. But like how many people could say that they beat Lod 4 times in a row? She did that. And Lod, this is not someone like, oh, a Marth player beat a Fox player 4 times in a row. Big whoop. This is like Lod is about as consistent as you can get. If you can beat Lod, that says a lot about you as a player. So for Salt to do that 4 times in a row, I mean that in the same weekend, that's incredible. I think it's absolutely a testament to where Salt is right now and sort of where we saw her moving forward at least a year and a half ago. So yeah, I think this is an incredible weekend for her. She won both the pre-local and low tide city without dropping a set, beating Axe a second time in a year. If Salt is not top 10 already, I think she's in that group of players that's slowly challenging that group of like Laud, Axe, Kadoran. Slug was in that group last year, I would say as well. So I think for sure this is a very promising sign for Salt. I think she has to be the biggest winner of the last weekend.
She's working her way into the seated above Mango at Battle of BC tier with like Axe and Aklo and players.
Yeah,
like
I don't know. Look, I'm not one to talk down on seeders. Maybe it may make for some exciting matches. That's all I'm gonna say.
Radar. I don't know if you said that you weren't able to see, but I want your opinion on this. You know the results, right? Salt has 2 Axe wins. Salt has 2 Laud wins at larger events. Oh my god, what did I just call it? Oh my god, did I just call low tide a major? And of course there's 2 wins at the local. Let me hear it. Is Salt the best Falcon player in Melee right now? Let me hear it, Radar.
That's a good question. I mean, so of the competing Falcons right now, like it'd be SUJ, Salt, Wizrobe, and who else am I forgetting someone like that's active like right now?
None.
Oh yeah, of course none. Yeah, so of those, I feel like I haven't seen that much from SUJ on like a national level lately. I mean, I'm looking at the seeding right now for Battle of BC. We got SUJ seeded 13th. Above SUJ is Sunsei, Kadoran, Mango. So does Salt feel like in the same tier as Sunsei, Kadoran, and Mango, of course, but like Aklo, those kind of players? I don't feel like that's the case. I mean, I think an Axe win is very big. I think a Laud win is very big. But it doesn't really feel like she's... I don't want to say that I value like longevity, because it's like that's not the only thing. Like it's not like, you can fall off and be someone who's been around for a while. But I just feel like I want to see Salt hit that consistency, hit that, like, start to rack up more wins, continue beating the people that she's beaten for that to be the case. So that's a very long-winded answer, but I guess the answer is no. I feel like people like S2J, and certainly I would say Wizrobe is a hard person to evaluate, but it's probably no, not yet.
How about this? I think this is a question where you can look at it from a couple different angles, right? Let's talk about some of the Salt results, some of the results that Salt's had this year, and let me see if that changes your mind as to whether or not she's been the best performing Falcon. Think, when a lot of times you say, is this person the best blank? You kind of think of what might happen in the future. And I think when you talk about Falcon right now, you are talking about one person who is just beginning her ascent And you're talking about 3 people who have been so good for so long and are in a period where it's kind of a lull. So let's talk about whether or not these results might, indicate someone who's the best of their character, and maybe even indicates, I think Edwin's smoking a little bit when he talks about a top 10, but I think that look at the results and see how we feel about this, because after a win at Low Tide definitely shakes up what we perceive this top 15, top 20 level. Genesis
I agree
is
with that.
win over Axe, win over Frenzy, losses to Plup and Spark. We've got a lot of Bobby Big Balls regionals, stuff like that. She obviously won Bemmy, beating Billy Bo Peep, Toussaint, lost to Shroom and Billy in pools and in winners bracket, respectively. More Bobby Big Balls tournaments. We see a Fat Goku win at Major Upset, another loss to Spark, lost to Kadoran. Smash Camp, I think, really begins this ascent that we've seen with Low Tide, where it's a win over Meds, 3-0. It's a 3-0 over Polish. It's a win over Spark to kind of make up for those 2 losses, and double eliminated by Fiction. And then we finally get to Low Tide, which was, I believe it's a win over Axe. It's 2 wins over Lot. I forget. I'm blanking on who came before that. But
Pablo
how
and
does
Weapons, I think.
Weapons, okay, yeah. How does that
That might have
match
been
up?
the pre-local, I forget.
Yeah, it's fine. How does that match up to your mental model of what a player like Kudoran or a player like Aklo, players who are kind of knocking on the door of the top 10, but maybe not necessarily top 10? How does that match up with what you think about those players, Radar?
Yeah, I feel like those other players have better wins, or just seem like they have more, even when you kind of pitch like this is the streak, in recent kind of tournaments like Low Tide, it's starting to sound like, oh, okay, hey, maybe this is kind of going somewhere good. But early on, it felt like some of the people you were mentioning feel like, yeah, okay, that's like a good win here, a good win there. But I feel like Aklo has good wins here and there, and then also has some higher wins. So I don't know.
Well, let me throw this to Edwin. Edwin, does Radar hate women?
Yes.
I'm getting the feeling that he does.
So I think to sort of wrap this up with the bow. I don't know, why am I doing this? This is not a bow. I think as
you
far
must
as
get bad birthday presents.
I think in terms of accomplishments and an annual resume, I think Salt's resume for 2023 alone compared to the other Falcons is the best. I also think that she is the newcomer to performing in at a quality within the few events that she's gone to this year that establish her as trending in that direction. Do I think that this will hold above Nunn or Johnny or even Wizro whenever he comes back? It's hard to say, but I think she has earned the benefit of the doubt in my mind to be in that, in the lower half of the top 20, 25 conversation if we're talking about where she stands right now. And I think she's shown a remarkable ability to compete with members of this group of players and consistently take sets. What I want to see from Salt after this, if to really solidify an actual, shot at contending for top 10 and not just consistently taking sets from that group, is to close out sets against the best players in the world. And one of the things with Salt that we saw last year is that even when she was a bit more, raw of a Smash prospect, to just put it in I guess a quick way, what I would like to see her do is start closing these Game 5 sets against Zane, Leffen, Wizro, the likes of those kinds of players. Now, can she do that? She was able to take it close when she was merely a top 50 player. But is this new and improved Salt going to be a threat to the top level? I'm really excited to see that moving forward.
Here's what I'll say about Salt, is that I think that it is a little bit early to coordinate her as the new best Falcon, just because there's so much that can change. I think you're right. By results, if everything stopped right now, if the big meteor took out everyone except for me and I still had to do a ranking contractually, I think she would be the highest ranking. But you're right. I think we need to see some of the big wins that these other players have established. That being said, a lot of these players outside of Wizrobe usually establish their big wins. I don't want to say few and far between, but like over a large part of their illustrious career, and she is getting a lot of wins in a pretty small period of time. So I'm not sure I'm willing to say that she is going to be the best Falcon, or at any given tournament she is going to be the highest placing Falcon. But I think you have to look at the results. And one thing I will say, I think you got to move it up. You said lower end, top 25. I really think that just by what we've seen this year, which is of course a shortened season because we're not like we're a couple months into it, and a couple months of like one super major and 2 capped majors. She has displayed results that I think are similar to the people that we would put probably just outside the top 10. I'm not sure if I would definitively say that like Laud has had better results, even though I think that he's a player who like I think of as better, would seed higher, stuff like that. I think that it's just like pure results. I think she is in that category, and it's really interesting to see. I hope she keeps it up, and yeah, go on.
All of us have to give a number to Salt right now. Off vibes. Let's go for the year.
Off of what? Off of
Vibes.
Vibes. Okay, 19.
18.
17.
Fuck.
Like I think
split the
top 20
difference.
is reasonable, and I think the weird thing about like you guys know this even better than I do is like just because you are number 6 and there's a number 5 does not mean you are like 1 point better than them. You might be like quite a bit better or quite a bit worse. So like to me, there's a pretty big jump between say 19 and 10, like or whatever you want to call it. So I think, but I agree with Wheat that like 25 is too conservative, especially like if we're just looking at it like these are the results, this is what we're seeing. I think definitely top 20 is reasonable.
I think we also agree that I respect women the most out of us.
I think that's super up in the air, and we might have to devote an entire episode to figure that one out.
We might just have to make a couple twit longers about it, so.
I would, maybe we let the fans vote in the comments who
Gotcha.
respects women more. Was it respect your word?
Yeah, respect.
It was respect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Respect, okay. Well, let's have people sound off. But yeah, no, I think that what's lost in all this discussion, this kind of bookish discussion of whether or not she's better than other people, is just how exciting this is, right? She was one of the most exciting players in the online era, and then developed into a player that was like able to be flashy and still be good, and not only that, but was then further developed in 2022 into a player that was not only good but very, very good, and has become a player that doesn't seem like she's going to be stopping anytime soon. The style that she has not only is extremely fun to watch, but it seems like it's something that I would say would be working in the future. I struggle to watch her play and say like, oh, it'll end soon. This hot streak is going to come to an end. So I want to see her continue to well, because what we kind of lose in these discussions of like, well, is she better than Aklo, is just how fun it is to not only watch her play, but watch a player like this break out, because we get to see this every now and then, and especially more now in the post-online era, but it's just a blast every single time. Speaking of which, she is also a player who continues to play. Like, plays in everything. Plays in locals, will go to regionals. I think she has a plan to go to one regional, fly to another regional the next day in a different state. I don't know if it's going to work, but just like, I respect the decision to do it. And I think that you can find her devotion to playing right now, like literally at this moment, because she is currently in bracket in the coin box. So Radar, speaking of the coin box, we have another relatively dubious money injection featuring HBox into the scene. I'm sure you all know, we had last time we had an episode, we talked about what Freshcut has announced, and since then we have a lot more information on it, which is very good. So to catch everyone up, Freshcut is a gamer TikTok, I believe, is the best way we can describe them. They are a media platform. It's a content platform which kind of takes like gamer content, video game content, specifically Smash Brothers, I guess, is what they're kind of cornering the market on, and puts it in like kind of the bite-sized portions that we see from like TikTok or YouTube Shorts. Fresh Cut has also devoted a lot of money to the scene with their God, was it $50,000? Was that it? The $50,000 fund, which was going to be run by their chief Smash organizer. Hey, I did that last episode. I said organizer. Chief Smash organizer, Hungrybox. Last time we talked, it was kind of a very nebulous idea of them spending money on players. We didn't know how many players. We didn't know who was getting money. We didn't really know anything about this. And one of the biggest things is we didn't know what Smash meant, if that meant Ultimate or if that meant Melee, which we later found out. But in the weeks since our last episode, there's been a bit more. We found out that this fund is given to people. There's like 3 people who win it every single time they do it, every single month. And they kind of get like a decreasing value based on votes. So the first person gets, I think it's like $12.50, and then goes down from there. But the thing that we're going to be talking about is their TO program. So Hungrybox recently announced a gift to the TOs, as I believe he called it, which is the Fresh Cut. What's it called? The Fresh Cut program? Partner program? Man, I wish I did the Jackzilla and actually wrote a script out before I did this off the dome. But there is a partnership program involving giving money to smaller tournaments, to like regionals, to even majors. And this is something that is open right now. It's open for tournaments to apply to. And basically, Radar, there's a couple things that I would like to say on it, but I want to hear your thoughts on this first. So what do you think about this recent announcement about this TO program?
Yeah, so, like, I think there's, like, a lot to say on it. I mean, I guess the first thing I would say is, broadly speaking, money in the scene is good. I think even on the condition of, like, getting people to sign up and stuff like that, like, as far as I'm aware, Fresh Cut was a sponsor for Major Upset, and was a profitable or like a worthwhile sponsor as far as I'm aware, like it, and that relied on signups and stuff.
Ultimate Summit as well. I believe they were a sponsor at Collision. They at the very least had a booth at Collision. Yeah, they've a history of sponsoring tournaments.
Yeah, so like in those cases, like from my understanding, it was beneficial to the TOs who ran it. So, you know, any interest is good interest. I think any money is good money. I mean, that's probably a little broad, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I think like we're not in a position to say no to a sponsor like this, I feel. That being said, like, it's still going to be, you know, just a drop in the bucket. And I think there's like some stuff that's like a bit strange. I mean, a big one that like it doesn't really matter, but I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, is like, will this sponsor be around in a year? Is the business plan like a super solid one? Maybe it's not my place to say or comment on that, but I certainly can. So I think it's like, it's good, but it's not like, it doesn't, it kind of feels like cool, like this is nice, I guess, cool, sure, whatever. I'm not like, yo, this is saving Smash, like this is what we need, like, you know, we've been in kind of a downward spiral and now this is pulling us up. No, like, I don't know if that sufficiently answers the question.
No, I think that's a great answer. I think it kind of deals with the biggest thing when it comes to something like this is, you know, you have to reckon with the idea of getting money into the scene, but what does that money mean and what does it entail? And Edwin, I want your opinions on it before we'll probably have very similar opinions because, I don't know, we talk too much.
Well, I've heard Anox as well. So.
Remember when we did a podcast with Walt and Raider, and we found out that they don't talk to each other between episodes, and they like just would talk on podcast?
We do talk now, but at the time,
well, when's your last podcast?
Yeah, because we showed you guys up, so you had to.
When was the last podcast? That's what you guys talk now. No, but Edwin, I believe that we talk so often that we probably have very similar opinions on this. But I want to hear what are your thoughts on this Fresh Cut tour?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say what I think. I think it's sus. I don't doubt the intention of getting money into the scene. I don't doubt the sincerity and earnestness of TOs and people involved in terms of explaining that the money can help. I spoke to some people that work with Fresh Cut, and my understanding of things for what they have told me is that the $100 to $2,500 fund for an event is essentially like that. My understanding is that $100 is basically like maybe a projector or something not necessarily long term beneficial to the event, but that when you get into the $2,500 sort of range, that's something that significantly does help with venue fees for regionals. So I don't want to say that the money is not useful for events. After talking to TOs, I think in a vacuum, it's good for them to have money that helps put them out of debt and make sure that events are sustainable. Now, I'm going to get into the thing that I think is a little suspect about this. Don't like what appears to me. The thing that raises alarm bells is the fact that this is being positioned as a a community fund or an initiative. Like you apply for this thing, this organization or this company gives you money to essentially shout them out, mention their name on stream, and you get the money, right? This is a little. My understanding of this is a little more detailed. This feels like they are essentially giving events a baseline amount of money, probably like closer to $100 or like on the lower end or so, and that the additional money earned from the event is based off TO referral or user sign up through a TO referral link. Now, maybe my understanding this is wrong. I'm not a TO. I'm not really like I'm not a business person, right? But when I read these things, like the Fresh Cut program and what entails of and how the money is given to the events and what the events are doing back, it reads to me like the tournament organizer, excuse me, that the tournament organizers
too much,
are doing sales for Fresh Cut, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's fine. Sponsors give money to people to do advertising for them in exchange. That's how partnerships work. I'm not opposed to that. That's what it is. Is it partnerships and an agreement? This company is trying to get more users through reaching out to this community that they think that they can basically acquire users through at a cheap cost. That is what they're doing. This is not a benevolent gift of money to a brand deeply invested in Smash. This is a company that is trying to find an efficient way of acquiring users and doing it through TOs, marketing this product and getting users to their app. That's what they're doing. And I think it's fine to feel suspect about this. It is okay to feel a little uncomfortable about this. Not because you think it will corrupt the nature of Smash or destroy events or turn everyone into shills, but it's okay to feel a little uncomfortable and wonder about where the money is going and how this fundamentally supports Smash. I think it's fine. What I don't like is very well-meaning, but admittedly desperate people saying that you aren't allowed to criticize this or you're not allowed to have reservations. I know it's been a really tough time in Smash. Trust me and we are people that basically spend our whole days thinking about Smash and working on projects related to Smash. We understand how financially precarious this situation is, and we certainly have a lot of stake in it too.
Yeah.
But I just don't
as
think
people who got paid from Smash, I think we know that there's no money in it.
Yeah.
And, well, hey, I thought there was no money in it last year. Turns out that was not true. What I thought was no money
brutal
could go lower.
Yeah, and I think it's fine to be suspicious, and it's fine to be cautious about these things. I don't want to encourage a culture within this community where we just have to accept the bag whenever it's given to us in exchange for service for other people. I don't think that's good for events. I understand that events and the way the scene is right now, we don't have much room to work with to negotiate with prospective sponsors and advertisers. But I don't think that mentioning that is necessarily or should be discouraged. I think it's good to be critical.
So can I ask you a question just before we continue? So like, I don't disagree with you. I guess my one thought is like the way you're kind of framing it is like you mentioned sort of this is not a company who like cares about Smash and is doing it for some benevolent reason, but isn't that kind of like sort of an unreasonable standard to have for like any sponsor? Like I'm not even necessarily saying like I don't agree that this is like not someone we should not be kind of somewhat skeptical of, but like isn't it inherently not stupid, but like
I think I know what you're getting at. So if I can just give my answer, I think I'm okay with that. I don't really care about the it's not so much for me if I can just clarify what I'm saying. It's not so much the sincerity of an organization or not that on its own that matters. Organizations get involved with communities and different scenes or niche markets because it's a benefit to them. I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. That's just how the world works and how like economics works or whatever, right? I think that the only thing I don't like is that there's people in the community that with notable platforms treating this and positioning this as an act of benevolence when it's not, and that the act of being skeptical or cautious toward it is robbing Smash of opportunities. That's what I don't like. I don't like that. I don't like the way that this is positioned or talked about as an act of charity or something to be very grateful for. Even GG, an organization that I really admire and respect a lot for their contributions to Smash, they do it because it's a benefit to their brand and because there's a value add to them. I don't have a problem with that. There's no way to measure sincerity or earnestness on its own. So to me it's less the absence or presence of that as much as the fact that that I think there's a willingness to jump on board with that as with the presence of a company on its own and the giving away of money with the stipulations on it as the act of benevolence on its own. But it's not. It wasn't even like that with GG initially, and that's okay. I just want people to be aware of that.
yeah, but I guess my pushback for that would just be like again, it's okay to be skeptical and stuff, but like it also seems like we should still be like okay, let's use like a parallel with like Papa John's. Like so Papa John's comes in and starts sponsoring some tournaments and they say like, "Hey, we're doing this, we want to get people to sign up, use code Papa John's, whatever, right?" And it's clearly like you said, like a mutually beneficial thing, like that's just kind of how things work. But I would still be like, "Thank you, Papa John's, for taking a chance on this kind of community." And so even though again I see Papa John's and this company as different, like shouldn't we still be glad that there is advertising interest in Smash, especially if it is what helps sustain the scene? Like what makes this different from Papa John's, I guess, is maybe a question I would ask.
I think there's a lot that makes this difference from Papa John's.
I'm not saying I don't think there's differences. I just want to like can you articulate that for me?
Sure.
Wait, I have my answer, but I have a feeling that we're on the same page.
Go ahead,
here,
Reed.
so you can...
I mean, you could talk about how they're positioned themselves in the community, right? Obviously, Papa John's is a brand that like probably does not need to benefit from this as much as Fresh Cut. They're two completely different scopes. You could talk about that, and it really does seem like obviously. While Papa John's did benefit a lot in terms of branding, hey, we had Papa John's on an episode. Like, we all ate it except for Edwin, who didn't order it. And, like, I've talked to countless Smashers who said, like, yeah, I've eaten Papa John's in the past year, and I wouldn't have if it were not for Melee. I definitely don't think that the intentions were the same in terms of Fresh Cut to be, like, a community savior. But I think the biggest difference is how this actually works, right? So... we don't know how the Papa John's deal works. Worked, I guess, because it's not something that seems to be continuing. But what we do know is that almost every single person who was involved said that it was extremely helpful and that it was something that, we probably can infer kept BTS going, considering, the year ended. BTS didn't really make it much further. I hate to, make a big inference on
fair.
that. But also, one of the things was that this money wasn't really tied to how many pizzas people bought. And that's kind of the big difference in what Fresh Cut's doing. Fresh Cut is coming out and saying they have amazing marketing, right? Because they come out with a trusted figure like Hungrybox, and he says, "I'm giving you guys $50,000, which is an insane amount of money, right? If you're a smasher, an insane amount of money to drop." And it's to tournament organizers, which was kind of the big issue that people had with the player fund. Was you had people go, okay, well, you can send players to as many tournaments as you want. These tournaments might not exist if you don't give them funding. So they answer that perfectly with $50,000 of funding. I think that the difference here is in how much this actually affects these individual tournaments. So any tournament can apply, and if they are accepted, they get $100. It is a $100 minimum. And then with downloads of the Fresh Cut app from the TO referral code, you start to gain more money. I believe it's something like they do have they talk about how much money it is. I think it's $1 per one download plus incentives for however many downloads. But I believe to get to the cap of 2,500, it does make it like over 1,000 downloads. And what Edwin said was correct, is that TOs have said that $100 probably won't really do much, but 2,500 will be like very helpful for a regional. And in a year where we are going from like fewer and fewer majors to more and more regionals, I think that this is something that we should welcome with open arms. But I think when you actually talk about the logistics and the thing that is actually going to happen from this is we're probably going to be seeing people not hit this $2,500 mark, especially if you need a TO code. Let's say I use the tipped off code and then I download the app. Can I uninstall the app and download again with the DreamHack Dallas code? Would that even work? And if that's the case, then you have kind of like a natural order where the bigger tournaments are going to use the most codes anyway, and the smaller tournaments are probably actually not even going to see a lot of money, because a 200-person tournament or a 100-person tournament or a 50-person tournament, which is the limit, you need at least 50 people, probably need the money more than a Genesis does, and might not have the reach, might not have the audience that that they would. And if you're in the later half of the year, maybe everyone already used their codes, everyone who's going to download. So I do think logistically as well. But Edwin, I'm sure what I mentioned earlier about Fresh Cut does seem to be positioning themselves, intentionally or not, as kind of a savior, which I never felt Papa John's did. I want to hear your thoughts on what Radar is asking, because I think we might have had similar thoughts.
No, I think you pretty much encapsulated everything that I wanted to say. The point that you touched on that I didn't even think of necessarily immediately was the logistics of earning the money and what was asked for in exchange, as far as what our understanding is as Steam contributors. That was one thing that I didn't think of or articulate as quickly as you did. What I was actually focused on, Radar, was more so. Now, I don't want to get into the specifics of this necessarily, because I was not involved in the deal, and I don't want a bunch of people involved to chew me out in the comments or reply to me for getting a number wrong. But again, this is just my understanding based on people who I talked to that were involved and that have been involved in previous deals that both fell through and happened to work out for Smash. My understanding is that the scale of what the Papa John's deal that the scale of what it had was well beyond basically anything that had ever happened for like a group of tournaments in the history of the scene. So, take that as you may. I'm not going to act like I have a specific number or an idea of how that revenue is distributed from event to the event, but my understanding was that it was quite significant across like 8 events or whatever, like well into the 6 figures. That's my understanding, though. I'm not going to pretend like I have a specific number or as much insight as the people that are working on that deal, but to my knowledge, it was unprecedented in history. So I think that one of the things that made that deal a little more easy for me to jump on board with was the fact that I knew that was going on, and every single, as kind of lame as it is to say, every single trustable community figure or organization that we had, like back then, which was obviously beyond the summit, was just hooting and hollering over this deal. It was such a good deal that even Summit and VGBC events were together on this.
Something that we thought were not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and these two organizations that hated each other for for like that were basically engaged in like a factional civil war last year, or like for a long time. So just to put it out there. So I think the fact that that deal had brought like events associated with both events together, from everyone that I talked to about this deal spoke glowingly about it, immediately made me willing to jump on board with it in a way that, I'm just gonna say it. I think Hungrybox has done a lot for the scene. His Coinbox series is great. I think it's provided great entertainment every other week or so, and every week for the broader Smash scene. But no, I don't think Hungrybox is quite on the level of events contributions that an organization like BTS has made. So for me, when I see a lack, so maybe this speaks to the lack of space holding within events that we have, and the need to fill that. But for me, like, at least I did not see as many signifiers that this was something at the scale of Papa John's, or something like potentially with the long term
I guess
future.
like what I'm not understanding is that like it feels like both of you guys are like, this is worse than the Papa John's deal, and it's like, I guess I just think like, okay, like, does that mean it's like somehow like a net bad, or even that like even like we talks about like, well, look at the differences. This has to do with a sign up thing, and that doesn't. And I get that those are different, but like having a sign up bonus is a very, very common thing for sponsors. Like YouTube sponsors do that. Like it's not like every sponsor does that.
Yeah.
But like
no, I think that's actually the important part, is that you can look at the Ambi tweet. This is just Raid Shadow Legends, and it's not an issue so much as why is this company different from this company. I think that the issue that that Edwin brings up is, why is this company being treated differently from this company? And I think you're actually right, is that we should treat these companies all the same, in that we should not be giving
It's good to have healthy caution.
Healthy competition, have healthy skepticism. We shouldn't be giving any company that wants to give money to the scene like any adulation without actually seeing what they give to us, right? And I think this is a hard thing to take in. It's an easy thing to say, right? We can all agree that we shouldn't just accept money blindly, but it's really hard to actually do. But this goes for anyone. This goes for Papa John's. This goes for Fresh Cut. This goes
for blockchain.com.
Coinbase. This goes for blockchain.com. This goes for Golden Guardians, right? You have to say, well, okay, there is a monetary reason why the Golden State Warriors wants to get into Melee. And then you have to think to yourself, like, well, do I have an issue with this? Do their interests align with my interest? Are they against each other? And I'm not even saying that Fresh Cut necessarily is that. It's just, I think that they've done incredible marketing, that they completely skipped the skepticism part. And it reminds me of, I think we probably mentioned on the last episode we talked about this, it reminds me of GTX 2017, where this outside organization comes in, makes the biggest promises with the biggest numbers, and does it in a really good marketing way, right? They kind of like hit you over the head with these numbers so much that so many people actually believe that these are the saviors. I think it's a surprise knowing that GTX did not become $1 million tournament and did not actually even continue to be a major. And we've seen these companies come in and out, and I think it's okay to take in money from the scene with healthy skepticism. And it's really just, I've not seen players from both Melee and Ultimate. I've not seen any other company have this kind of push and pull where people go, okay, well, maybe there's something bigger to this. And obviously I will not act as if Fresh Cuts, Web3 crypto ties, whether active or not, affect this. Obviously people are mad at that and are willing to give them less leeway than they would a company that's associated with fucking pizza, right? But I think that every company should be greedy with this, and I think the interesting dynamic is that they've kind of skipped to a part where they're kind of met with open arms, and I think we haven't seen the reason to do that just yet. I mean, I'd be happy to say in the future that this was a great deal. I just think that we have to wait. We have to see it.
Who is opening the arms up and saying like they're so great? Like, I guess I just haven't seen that. I feel like I'm almost exclusively seeing like I don't know about this one. Maybe it's like, why should we be so excited? Like who who is like popping off like that's notable besides HBox, who's like a brand ambassador?
I mean, I don't know. You're getting into specific circles there. I will say that I've seen a lot of Ultimate people, both larger and like
12-year-olds? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, well, that's exactly what they're talking to, right? This is they're getting HBox to say this specifically so people will trust him more. Here, I'll read a tweet that I saw from Aaron from Moist. Aaron from Moist, the Diddy Kong name. So this is yesterday. He tweeted, "I've seen so many people express concern for Fresh Cut being in the community and literally zero reason as to why. I swear that MFs just want to run out any opportunities for money possible. If you have valid fears, that's another thing. Not sponsored to say any of this." And I do think that this is something that I've seen a lot of. I've seen a lot of people say like, you are running out people with money, and Smash is not in a position to do so. Which I wholeheartily disagree with. I think that we are in a position to wonder where money comes from, just as if you should wonder where money could come from if someone gave it to you in real life, right? If someone said, "I'll give you $2,000. I've never met you, but I'll give you $2,000." I think you should wonder why that's happening. It seems like, Fresh Cut might be great. They might give us a lot of money, and mutually beneficial for them, right? $50K for marketing for an entire year. That's pretty normal for big companies, especially ones that are funded with millions of VC money. But we have to actually see if this is something that benefits us more than it benefits them. And I just don't think that we're at that level yet. What's up, Edwin?
Yeah, I want to name another tweet, and I just want to say I like this guy a lot. If you're the few of you that are listening to this, please do not harass him. He's a very good person.
We don't have people who care enough to harass. They harass us most.
Yeah, we're actually the ones putting our skin in the game by mentioning this. I did see SFOP, the fox that I'm very fond of, tweet something along the lines of, well, I'm just gonna read it. It's, "How are people bitching about HBox giving free money to the community? Shut the fuck up. This is why no one likes us." It's not.
You're afraid to say fuck.
Okay, but
it's not free money.
Okay,
the TOs are performing their TOs are performing a service for them. And that's fine, but it's not free money.
It just seems kind of like I totally agree it's fine to be skeptical. I totally agree that I don't want money from any source. You have to be kind of considering where is this coming from. I guess to me it kind of seems like, and I also agree that they should not position this as like the saviors of Smash or something. That's obviously like not true, and it's like probably out of touch to position it that way. That being said, like it does feel like I haven't seen this same kind of criticism for like other sponsors that regularly sponsor the event or sponsor events or sponsor specific events. Like, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of a good example, but like most tournament sponsors feel like this. And so, yeah, they shouldn't position this as some kind of crazy, like, oh my God, this is like, we're saving Smash, baby. But like, is it not just like, cool, I guess this is good. We shouldn't blow it out of proportion. But like when, I don't know, TELUS, like a phone company in Canada, sponsors Battle of BC, or like apparently some local driving school is like, should we be like, well, that's barely any money, and I guess I just don't see that's probably sign up dependent too, based on the way that the marketing seemed to be. Like, you know what I mean?
I don't think that there's I've literally never heard of those two things, and you didn't even name the name of one of them. I think that they're very different from what Fresh Cut's doing here, and I think that's the difference, right?
Yeah,
but like there have been big sponsors that put this kind of money in the past. It kind of feels like I don't agree with the people who are like, oh yeah, we should just blindly say yes, free money, whatever. But like, I guess I am kind of pushing back that it seems like, I don't know, like Weed Maps is probably a bad example, but like that's kind of a random ass sponsor that sponsored Summit and probably put like a decent amount of money into a couple events, and like they didn't save Smash or whatever, but they probably like helped out that event. And if this thing is spreading the money a bit more broadly, like maybe it helps an individual organization less, but helps many organizations a little bit. Like, I don't know. It feels like,
I don't know if I understand the Weed Maps connection. Can you go further into that? What
like basically like it feels like here's a company that's giving $50K to Smash. There are probably been like many companies that have given anywhere from 25 to $50K for Smash. You know, I can think of Juked, for example, was sponsoring a bunch of money to different tournaments. It was like 5K here, 5K there, like probably in total it ended up being 50K. They didn't announce it in the same way, so I agree. Like, I don't think it makes sense to position this as some kind of big savior thing, but like, I also don't see how it's like so different from those, because some of those were based on like sign up stuff. You know, like it's not that crazy to have a sign up model. So like I do kind of sympathize with the people who are like, why are people frustrated by this, or like hitting it not in just like a like to me this feels like a okay, cool, money in the scene, whatever. It might not make much of an impact, whatever. Like it doesn't seem like it. Not, I'm not saying that it shouldn't be something we discuss in the podcast, because obviously people have on Twitter been talking about it back and forth, but like it just seems like just another sponsor. And the only thing that they did that was weird is A, like the kind of origins of the company, and then B, like just positioning it as if it is some kind of like crazy saving Smash thing. And honestly, I don't want to call out somebody, but I feel like that has more to do with HBox being like, yo, we're gonna do like,
Well,
we're gonna frame it that way.
He's hired to do so, right? That's the thing.
But that's I bet what he recommended. Like
the thing I'll say about this is that we must have different social media circles, I guess, because I have not seen any like how you're right. People have been sponsoring tournaments forever, right? But I haven't seen Juked position themselves in the way that Fresh Cut has, or talked about in the way that Fresh Cut has. And I know you want people to come out of this saying that Melee Sets is anti-Fresh Cut, right? I don't think that's necessarily the call. I just want to actually see what we're going to get, right?
Knoke.
Edwin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, just exploring my thoughts out loud here, right? I think what you're bringing up is interesting, and just this is not something I'm definite on. I'm just I'm trying to articulate and find particular reasons why I feel like this is different than some of the other sponsors, right? And I think an inevitable part of this is just, again, I'm not anti-Fresh Cut. I don't want this to be an anti-Fresh Cut podcast, but I do think the nature of what the company provides, what its history is, some of its the press behind it, and its existing notoriety and mixed reception in other communities like the FGC and whatnot, I think give us a little more reason to treat this as a discrete instance of not being actively hostile to a prospective sponsor, but just wary. I think that does have to do with it, and that I'm not necessarily comfortable diving into all the specifics on things like people feeling like their content was taken on Fresh Cut without permission, or just the writings of other people's account. I can say that I met with Fresh Cut people at events, and they seemed like sincere people that believed in their company. I don't think they're trying to rip off people necessarily, but I think there's certain things about the product that they give, and there's certain things about their history, their involvement in other communities, receiving mixed feedback, that do make this a bit more discreet than, say, like Andromeda Consultants or something else. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair game.
I guess it just seems like, to me, it feels like blown out a bit of proportion. That like, yeah, do I think that this company is like as trustworthy, as reputable as someone that I would like handpick to sponsor us, compared to like even other places like, I mentioned Juked. As someone who's a commentator, like I've read countless ad reads for events, and sometimes they're like, HyperX microphones, and sometimes they're like, Andromeda Consultants, and I am pretty sure, like pretty confident, that some of those are conditional on how many codes they get and how much that type of stuff. So it really feels like it boils down to like, is Fresh Cut just kind of like a little bit of a weird company, and did they kind of position this in a way that's like a bit self-congratulating? I guess yes to both, but is it like so different from the other sponsorships that we've had in the past? Like, I don't really feel like it's crazy different.
No, but that's part of the point, right? Part of the point that we're trying to make is that this is the same exact thing. I mean, literally on our last episode, I mentioned that this is the same exact thing as seeing a slide on at a major. Same thing with HyperX. They just thought to themselves, and I'm calling them great marketing this entire time because, right, we're fucking talking about this. We weren't talking about HyperX. They probably decided that they could put $50,000 or $100,000 or however much money their entirety the fund was, they could put that much money into getting slides at every major tournament. And they could be a title sponsor at, whatever, Gommel, like pick a major, and it probably cost a very similar amount. Or they could take all that money They could hire HBox to hype them up, and they could do the same thing with a more guerrilla marketing sense and a more of a sense that this is a homegrown, grassroots type fund. And yeah, I think that you're mentioning that this isn't different. That's the point, right? The point is that this is the same exact thing. It's what Ambi mentioned, right? This is Raid Shadow Legends. They have something to gain from this, and we have something to gain possibly. But there are people who are kind of acting as if this is not just a company basically buying another company to talk about them, right? This is not the same exact thing. So I think it's important to kind of understand where the money comes from in our community, and I think we've all agreed on that. And I've been loving the discussion we're having, but we do have one of the biggest tournaments of the year to talk about. So I think this has been very interesting. I want to hear what people in the comments say, because usually our comments are just saying that our microphones are bad. So I'd like to hear some feedback into kind of what's going on in the episode, because this is a topic that we talked about before. Knowing us, hey, we talked about fucking HBox every episode last year. We're probably going to talk about this again. we don't have good topics. We go to the same thing every now and then. We're probably going to talk about this in the future. So I actually want to hear what people say, because I think this is a subject that's really interesting, because it's based on what's happening in the scene, but just as much as that, it's based on what people are saying. So I want to hear from people who watch this show, people fans of our stuff. I want to hear what you guys talk about. But obviously,
Can I just say one thing before we segue out?
Sure.
I do think there is something to be said. So again, we're pretty much on the same page with a lot of stuff. Some of this is me slightly playing devil's advocate, but I do think there is something to be said of like, I think there is like, I'm trying to think of the right way to word it. Being kind of negative when a sponsor does want to sponsor Smash can be harmful as well. That doesn't mean that this is not the right time to be negative. I just think like, while I don't agree that like Smash, I also believe Smash can be choosy about the sponsors it picks. I think like, we do want to position ourselves as someone who is like looking for sponsors. I think it would be, you use Raid Shadow Legends. Like, I'm fine if Raid Shadow Legends sponsors a Smash event. I think that would be good. Maybe we disagree on that, but like, if it gets money to the scene, and as long as they're like, like that's good. So I do still wonder about like reacting negatively, but we got to move on, like you said.
So we have Battle of BC 5 coming up this weekend. This is it's the largest Battle of BC tournament just by pure numbers. And also, if you look at the attendees, this probably is also the most stacked, at least at top level, this event has ever been. So this is kind of an event that years ago was a cool regional little thing to look at, and it has blossomed into one of the premier events for the top level players. And I think that this year is no different. Radar, we probably had you on last year. I don't think we see you as anything other than Canadian, unfortunately. That's your that's your go-to. So you want to talk about your history with the Battle of BC series?
Yeah, so it's not like as long as someone like Kevin Deere or something who's been there from the beginning. But I moved to BC in 2017. I guess the first Battle of BC event I went to, was that Battle of BC 2? Or maybe it had already happened. But I went to that. It was either 2 or 3. Yeah, I went to 2. And then I also went to 3. Both of them were very good. But I think the event really changed for the better last year. Not because of anything that really had to do with the TOs. It just had started to gain more and more momentum. A bunch of new faces came along. Not to say that that's not the result of the TO's hard work, but sometimes it's like let's say you're a really good band, but you're just building your fan base, and then all of a sudden you have one kind of breakout show. I think Battle of BC had a similar thing, and yeah, it was a really, really, really good event last year. It's a good event this year, I hope, and I don't know. I've consistently found it one of the most fun tournaments that I've been to. So I don't know. It feels like I kind of rambled there, but yeah.
I think there's one notable difference from last year to this year. Advent, do you know what that is?
It's me.
Oh, what the fuck? No, it's in a new location.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's
definitely
like
new
literally
location.
not. It's what the fuck?
It's
It's
not
like
my
in downtown
presence at the
Vancouver. It's in
event.
a big convention center.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
So,
dude, it's you.
Yeah.
so there actually like that is something worth talking about, like really quickly. To speak to someone who lives here, previously, if we were to imagine like kind of Vancouver as like a square, it used to be on the far western side. It was on the university campus, and for people who haven't been to Vancouver before, University of British Columbia is kind of like almost like its own little city. Like it's very far removed from the rest of the city. It's very, very big. Like there's like something like 50,000 students, so it's really spread out, and that's kind of where it took place. Whereas if that's kind of here, downtown is like north and kind of off, like maybe a 20-minute drive from UBC. So now the tournament is literally like the heart of the city, downtown by the ocean. There's like mountains in the background. It's going to look really nice. We've had one other tournament here before, Pinnacle. But I think like one of the things that I heard a lot from people who came last year was just like how much Vancouver as a city impressed them, and I think people will really feel that here, just like both in terms of natural beauty, and in terms of food, like everything, transit. So it's really like positioned quite literally to be like a successful event because it's in a really really good location.
I mean, that's the type of stuff we talk about. Edwin and I, we've gone on and on about what makes a major good. What makes the attendee experience great. So Edwin, you're right. You are going to this one. This is your first
That is
time.
also yeah.
First time at a Canadian major, right?
Yeah, my first time.
First time in Canada.
Not like since I've been an adult. Like I went there when I was like really little.
Okay. So this is your kind of you're going to be breaking new barriers. What are you looking forward to in terms of Battle BC as a tournament itself? What do you want your tournament experience to be?
I'm pretty excited to just be in the city of Vancouver, honestly. I think that it'll be nice going to an event in a convention center. We don't know how many of those are going to be
Yeah,
going to be
right.
around super moving forward. So it almost feels like I didn't mention this in my column earlier this week, but it almost feels like I'm going back in time into what feels like a BTS era major because I don't really know how much.
BTS era, dude.
Yeah, yeah, it's just like it's in a convention center. It's a big event. Like I'm pretty excited for it. I think Vancouver is a really really interesting location. Kind of obnoxious to get to for me because there's no nonstop flights from Boston. But I've heard great things about the city. I'm pretty excited to be there, to travel around, to enjoy good food. I think the event itself is quite interesting in terms of the competitive field, also because it's quite top heavy. It may
Yeah.
even be top heavy. Hopefully everyone's trying and makes it to the event, but it may end up having a top eight that's about as good as anything that you'll find, which I think is quite extraordinary. So I'm pretty excited for that. I think that I think there's a bit of a steep drop off after the 20th or like 21st seed or so, because then you get into people like Ingen, and you get into a lot of wild card type players that could either bust her out or go on these super deep runs. I think the last thing I'll say on this topic before we get into like the really big the big questions surrounding this event, like who's going to win it and how top eight will turn out and everything. I think BC is in a particularly interesting spot because the scene, last year it had quite a few locals. It's got the four foxes or whatever, or the three foxes. You got Polo, you got Elliot, of course. Lately, has had some returning players like SB and Foe are starting to come back. But as far as like the actual scene of the Vancouver itself and just in broader British Columbia, my understanding is that the same like weekly locals are not really quite there anymore because they're usually through the university, and I think one of the like leaders left or something, or maybe people. I forget exactly what it was, but the long story short is that a lot of the people in BC they kind of play at fests and they play at monthlies now, or they play on like West Coast Net Play. But the actual like weekly locals that used to be there aren't really quite around, and there's monthlies now.
Like there
Is my
still are,
understanding.
yeah, some tournaments, but it's
Yeah.
not as much as it was, like especially pre net play.
hmm So I'm pretty
Pre
interested to
Flippy.
see how they perform against a broader audience because that's another thing with the, or excuse me, against a broader field of like out of region talent because that's another thing BC I think is kind of notorious for. It's a bit of an international hub. Like a lot of the Japanese players used to come to BC. BC had a really good relationship with the Japan scene even far back as like the MLG era. So I just think in general, we have a fun little crowd of people from different regions. You got a lot of notable top 50 players. You have hidden bosses there, and obviously, like I mentioned before, the top level talent is there. So I'm excited to watch it all. I'm excited to play a bunch of people. Travel Vancouver. I gave my word last year that I'd go to the event.
Yeah,
So
you kept saying that. You're like, I gave my word. I must go.
I
Okay.
think like okay, obviously we want to talk about like players to look out for, and we're gonna do that. But I do think one of the things you talk about like a post BTS era, and it is like depressing to talk about that. But I think one of the strengths of a city like Vancouver, and obviously it is expensive, is just like if you treat Smash purely as like a place to just connect with other people and play the game, and sorry, Smash events, not just Smash specifically, then maybe Battle of BC isn't going to be automatically the highest ranked, but if you treat it as also a chance to like travel, uh, try new food, like culture, etc., then I think it does do quite well. So I think that's something that like for people maybe who haven't gone, will be impressed by, and I think it's something that also like some other big events like Gomo as well, which is another Canadian one, like have as well. So yeah, but let's talk players to look out for. Who you feeling?
So, Adwin, you mentioned that this is an event that has a lot of top level talent, and you're right. And one thing you mentioned is that there is a bit of a drop off between the like really top level talent and what you kind of start going to like non top 100 or lower end top 100 players like right after people who could place top 8 here. So it is a really interesting thing. But yeah, in terms of people who I'm going to be looking at, there's a Marth. There's a Marth that we don't get to see very often at all, and I think he could go very far. He's scheduled or not scheduled. He's seeded in a way that he could end up playing Fiction, and while I think that Fiction ends up taking it, I think that this player is going to do really well this term. I'm of course talking about BZ. BZ is the Canadian Marth, I believe. I've heard Saskatchewan, I've heard Alberta, I've heard a ton of different things. I actually don't know where they are. Just that big mass of Canada in the middle that no one cares about. Sorry, is that mean? People care about
Is
it.
Fiction going? I don't see Fiction on the seating list.
Fiction is see, I thought he was in the bracket. I could have sworn I just saw it. unless it's someone else's name and I'm just going crazy. But yeah, what I want to talk about is so Ingen is scheduled to play BZ, which is a really interesting match to me. These are two players who we generally don't get to see too often. But I'm actually going to have to throw my hat in the BZ ring for this one. This is a player who, if you remember from last Battle of BC, not only 2-0 Toussaint, but I believe it was like a 6-stock.
yeah,
something.
it was not close. It was like, and this is against Toussaint, someone whose history against Marth is usually like quite good.
Yeah.
Toussaint was very difficult for Rishi historically when they were in the same region together. Toussaint later on, obviously as we know, would beat Kadoran. So it was such a wild out of nowhere result.
I think BZ is an interesting player to keep an eye on. Definitely one of the up and coming players from Canada. And Radar, yeah, Fiction's in the bracket. I don't know what.
Yeah, I just so the reason I say that is because like I got a list of the seating from Deer, and Fiction isn't on that list. So I just DM'd Kevin about that because Fiction is in the bracket. So
he's got a normal ass seed, so it might just be an old outdated thing.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, speaking of people who added to the bracket late, there's another Falco from SoCal we could probably talk about at some point soon. But yeah, I think BZ is going to be my pick for someone who can do well here. If you're going to talk about people who can maybe not like hidden bosses, but people who could outplace their seed, Triff is going. Triff is always a good pick for someone who can outplace their seed, and he's going to be playing Josh Man if the seeding holds up. And that is just like two players who we really don't get to see too often right now. I know Triff is trying to travel more, and this is Josh Man's first Canadian tournament. First tournament as a Canadian, I guess.
Yes, I'm like, well, wait, he was at Gobble. Yeah.
No, he was Australian then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But I think that could be interesting just because we haven't seen him in a while. So, yeah, I think whoever wins that honestly has a pretty good chance to move far through the bracket because both of them just, like, well, I mean, the winner has to play J-Mook, but after that, losers, I think could do well. What do you think, Radar? You're the resident Canadian here. Every time we have a Battle of BC episode, we got to call you on. So I think you might be kind of in touch with the sort of some of the lower end players here. Who do you think might do well?
I mean, I wish I was more in touch than I am. I know like last year, it feels like such a cliche because I say Elliot every year, but like Elliot did well last year. He did quite well, and I think the thing about Elliot, just having talked with him, is that like I believe he just barely lost to Moki as someone who watched that set. Like it was like game five, last stock kind of situation, and still placed within like I want to say for sure top 32, but maybe like top 16. So he had like a good result there. Now Elliot, having talked with him, he's kind of just like not that interested in traveling right now, but he plays a lot or was playing a lot. Like let's just say like 5 months ago when I talked to him. So, and said he was very interested in becoming the best in BC. And now we have Amsa living here, so I still think he still kind of has a fire in him. He just doesn't want to be on a plane all the time, and like that's relatable. We see Plup with the same kind of mindset. So I think Elliot could do really well. I've always been impressed with Polo's play. I think Polo is a Falcon, just a solid player. I think kind of approaches the game in an interesting way. So those are probably the two that kind of stand out to me. But I think in general, BC has like a fair amount of capable players. I also think even though Sunsei is not from BC, and of course like not an underestimated player, we all know Sunsei. Sunsei had a really good performance at the previous Battle of BC. This is a tournament that is not a significant amount of traveling for him, living in Alberta. And I would imagine that he's kind of hoping to kind of answer back even stronger, make top 8 again. So that's someone who I could see outplacing his seed, which is 12th right now. So, and Fiction is coming. He just got added late, so yeah, it just wasn't an updated seeding list. Wait, hello?
Yeah, I can't hear you.
I can't hear you. Wait.
Sorry, I was getting all my curses out of the way. Just to make sure they don't go live on air. No, I think that's those are all great answers. BC's got a lot of hitters. I think Elliot's a great one. You've got like Polo, Amrak, like that. I mean, even like SP, right? If you want to go back to kind of the old school. I mean, not old school. What pre-pandemic?
Yeah.
But yeah, that BC always is a region that I think has a lot of players that people really underrate. So I think that all those picks are good, and I think there's no reason for me to say like Elliot or Sunsei or any one of those won't do well because they all just always seem to outplace expectations. What do you think, Edwin? Who's your pick here as someone to maybe watch out for?
God, I really want to talk about the top level super badly because
Oh my
I
god,
think
pick one person and don't say anything about them. Just say one tag.
does it okay, sorry. Let me ask one last question. Can I pick a top 8 seed or do I have to
No.
pick
Just say you think Kwang will do well.
Yeah, let's go with Quang. Yeah, I got a
Cool.
good feeling about him.
Perfect. Now say his actual tag.
Uh Cynical Master?
No. You'll get it right one day. We'll figure out the pronunciation. Okay, let's talk about since you're so raring to go, let's talk about the top 8 seeds because as we talked about before, this is an event that has one of the strongest, cast of players in the top level that we've seen all year. This is an event that rivals the likes of Genesis, Collision, those types of events, and will probably be pretty important to any future storyline we have, right? We're not going to see an event this big until tip off might be is getting there, but like to the likes of Gommel in a couple months in July. So yeah, let's talk about this because this is going to be the thing that it might be J-Mook's path to be number one in the summer, or this might be the return of Zane. This might be the one that HBox wins. I think this might be Moki's first, right? I think there's a ton of amazing storylines here. Why don't you get into it? What really piques your interest here?
So, I can only check this since 2013 because there were official SSBM rank seasons for these, right? But from what I have found out, No player has ever began a full ranking year with 3 consecutive major victories at tournaments they've gone to. Crazy stat considering we've seen Armada win 7 majors in a row. We've seen HBox go on tears. We've seen Armada go on another tear that was slightly less dominant than that. But no one has ever began a ranking period winning all 3 events they went to. Not in the at the start of the year. That's not Armada, not HBox, not Mango, not PP. Nobody. The first 3 events that they went to in a given year. So I think Jmook is in a very interesting spot where he could conceivably win a third consecutive major and actually accomplish a very specific and more weirdly kind of more weirdly rare thing than you might anticipate. So I think his bracket path is kind of fascinating too. I believe the way things are set up, he has Josh Man into Axe to make top 8, which I think is, for Jmook, he's been so reliable and so consistent. But I think if you had to pick 2 opponents that are capable of taking
Yeah.
a set off him or can give him a bit of a challenge, I think Joshman and Axe are pretty tough. I think Jmook is favored in both those sets. But I think
Josh Man took him to
that's a
game
lot.
5 last year. We've seen, obviously, Axe has beaten Jmook multiple times last year, so this is kind of a little bit of a proving path to get to top 8.
And if he doesn't play Axe, he has to play Aklo instead, who obviously not invulnerable versus Sheik, and Jmook is a different class of player. He eats up foxes for breakfast. That's a harder challenge for Aklo than it is for Jmook. But when we're speaking at the level of potentially winning the first 3 majors he enters within a year, these are things that are cumulative that do make things more difficult. So I would like to see him. I'd like to see how he deals with that. And outside of Jmook, I think Moki's in an especially interesting spot because if we're talking about players whose stocks have risen, who look better than they've ever looked, I think Moki. If you're talking about prime Moki, I think now's got to be it, right? We're talking about someone where there's 4 people at this event within the top 8 seeds or so that Moki, you could argue Moki to be favored over. He's got some difficult challenges. I think that if he runs to Jmook, Zane, or Mango, unfortunately, I think those are just kind of really. It's not impossible to imagine him taking a set off them, but I just think it's really unlikely the way things are right now. But you give him any combination of Amsa, Leffen, Cody Schwab, even Hungrybox. I think the way things are trending for Moki, I really believe a major is in the cards for him. I'm not saying it's favored or that it's likely to happen, but I think it's a higher possibility now than it's ever been.
I think that
All right, hit
actually,
me. Who's actually winning? Is it Moki?
I'll reveal it at the end of the show.
Oh my god,
so
little diva.
I'm just gonna meme a little bit, but is it the Mario? Because I feel like Moki's been just vibing on stream, playing Mario, doing really
Maybe.
well with that. Maybe it's like the head clearing game for Smashers. I mean, we got Joshman as well. I'm interested to see how both of those guys do uh, after investing all this time moving fast. Will that translate to their Fox? I feel like it will. I'm excited.
What do you think, Radar? What is this top level play looking like? Who do you think's gonna end up winning?
It's a good question. I am the kind of player or a kind of person that thinks that things like sort of home court advantage and not being jet lagged actually do matter a fair amount. And I think AMSA being from here, not having to travel, having a chance to kind of because in the past he's had to move further around, and even events that he's done since he moved to Canada, he's still having to deal with jet lag and stuff. I think he's not a crazy pick. I would love to see Moki win. Um, so my prediction is I mean, honestly, even Leffen I'm interested in. Be between those 3. I'm gonna say Amsa. I'm gonna say he's gonna bring it home for BC.
Wow. The recently married? Did that happen? Is that a real thing?
Hmm.
He's getting married, right?
Amsa, is he getting married? I don't think he's married yet because I saw him say something about his girlfriend, so I don't think they're married yet.
He made a tweet that said he's getting married today.
Oh, today. Okay, that's exciting.
So maybe he'll win his first major as a newly married man. I think is a wonderful pick, and I think you're right. There's a lot of things that one of the things that goes into majors that we don't really think about that much is the preparation needed. And flights, I think, is a huge part of them. And I think the reason why we didn't think about that is because our Armada just did it for so long and won't beat everyone. So I think that we kind of forget how it affects mortals. So I think Omps is a good pick. I'm going to harken back to a tournament that I think is one of the best grand finals I've ever seen. I think it's one of the best top 8s. I think it's a tournament that everyone here who's seen it has a special place in their heart. And it's a tournament that was won by a guy who took a break from Smash and had a bit of a rough go of it in terms of results, in his recent results, and got seeded a little lower than he might want to be, and ended up turning that seeding into the perfect path for him to win. I'm of course talking about Mango at the Big House 9. He was a 6 seed there. I believe he beat Wizrobe, and then I think there was Leffen. He beat Leffen maybe or something like that, and ended up beating Zane twice. I forget. Maybe it wasn't as great of a tournament as I said, because I don't remember. But reminds me of another player here. A player who is seeded a bit lower after taking some time off and has a bit of a perfect path. Of course, talking about Mango here. Mango's the 10th seed. Mango has Leffen into Cody Schwab. 2 matchups that he ate up last year. 2 players who looked like they didn't have any idea of what to do versus Mango. And then he plays Zane, which I think is a lot harder. And for that reason, I'm going to say J-Mook is winning. I think Mango is an interesting pick here, and I'd love to say it. But I have been interested in what J-Mook has been doing since his last win at Collision. He didn't go to Major Upset. He hasn't gone to a tournament since, actually, but not that there's been a really huge one. And, if you look at his Twitter, he's been talking about some serious stuff, some mental stuff going on, taking some time off. But if you also look at his Twitter, you just see that this guy cannot miss. And this is not like Zane. Remember Zane when he couldn't miss on Twitter and in real life? It always felt so, full of effort when Zane did it. J-Mook is just saying shit and is the coolest shit ever. I don't know if you saw. There's some drama going on with Meister, the Game Watch.
Yeah, I think if J-Mook ever responded to me like that, I would cry.
I think you'd leave everything. The scene.
I would reconsider everything.
He made Meister delete his tweet. And he's just it's not like he was dunking on Meister. He was just like, hey, we all have a lot of growth to do. I think you should really reconsider your actions, man. And he said it in the coolest way possible. He literally seems like a guy who can't do anything wrong. And the thing that makes it so annoying is that it really just seems like that is his default. He's not trying. It's so effortless the way that he just every single thing he does is amazing. I'm sure you've seen the clips of him playing guitar. He's great at it. I'm sure you've seen the clips of him doing the Andrew Tate impression. I think it was before that was. I don't know if you do that right now. Might be a little weird. He was great at it. He was very funny. I still think, maybe I'm making this up. I still think that there was something that he said in a post Summit 13, the HBox live stream that implied that he knows how to pole dance. I don't know if we've ever seen the end of that. It's like Chekhov's gun. We're eventually going to find out. But he is just someone who, time and time again, does the unprecedented, right? He did the unprecedented with Genesis. He won a major at Solo Chic. He did he did the unprecedented a year before where he got to second and as a 20-something seed. And the way that he's been playing recently, I think that these people are scary. I think Joshman could do well. I think Axe is someone who's always going to be scary for J-Mook just because of the unfamiliarity. If Amsa beats Moki, breaks the recent streak that Moki's had over Amsa, Amsa's given J-Mook issues, right? This is by no means an easy bracket. And yet, I have just supreme faith in this man to do whatever he wants and do it in the coolest way possible. I'm sure he's going to, he's going to win with the fucking coolest combo. He's going to do the coolest pop-off. He's going to have the coolest, winner's interview. And he's going to have the coolest picture of him with the trophy. And if that's the case, dude might have the coolest #1 season. Because 3 straight tournaments opening the season. I don't want to say that anything's an open and shut case, especially when we have, Tipped Off. We've got Wave Dash. We've got Gommel, of course. But I don't know, man. Seems like that might be hard to beat. Now, Edwin, you've been waiting till the end of the show to reveal your true take. One that is so good that you must give it at the end of the show to let everyone know.
Yeah, at the end of the show. I meant to say the end of the segment. I don't know why I said the end of the show.
Yeah, we've got like 10, 15 more minutes after this, so just go on.
Yeah.
Who do you think's winning?
Wait, I think J-Mook is such a sensible pick. Radar,
And yeah,
I think Amsa is a sensible pick, but less sensible
dude, if you say
than
Leffen,
J-Mook.
I'm gonna fucking kill myself.
I gotta
That's
say
the
though,
wheat pick.
I'm a sucker for good stories. I'm a sucker for good narratives. Okay, and I think there's something so beautiful about Moki defending Canada and
Would be
winning his
hype.
first ever major at Battle of
Different
BC
Canada.
five. I think this tournament where
It's
it
kind of like
features
defending California
every
when you're from
single
Boston.
one of the like basically every single person who could possibly win a major is here, right? Like more or less, like yeah, I guess Slug's not here, but Slug's not like quite in shape, but like I think I think basically every conceivable top level opponent is here. I think to at a time when the game is so when matchups are so kind of volatile and spread out with everybody beating each other who or with like certain people who beat each other that then beat other people that typically beat the first group of people. I think having a group of like 4 or 5 really good matchups is quite valuable. And I think just given Moki's trajectory as a player, his increased consistency against the field also. By the way, we shouldn't take that for granted. There was a time period where Moki where it looked scary for Moki against people like Crike or when he went up against like a top 50 or top 75 player where he would follow the losers early and make these deep runs and then kind of run out of gas and fall a little bit
Shout out
short
to
after.
Eggy.
Yeah, after making top 8 or top 16 or whatever. And I think the Moki that we're seeing now, like even when he does take those losses, he takes them on the chin and still makes it really far in bracket where he's losing or he has to lose to guys like J-Mook and Zane, right? And I think he's just taken a really big step forward in his matchup spread at the top. I think he's become so much more reliable against some really dangerous players. Where like even when he loses, he still makes his way back and is looking his best and putting up a fight against people that he previously looked very lost against. And I just think there's something really inspiring about his story in general. And I just I want him to win this event. I think he would be a really great champion, and I could totally see it happening. So I'm gonna make him my pick.
Can I ask
Let
you
me
guys something
one-up you.
before we
He
we
wins Gommel instead.
yeah, well, that would also be crazy. Before we transition like out of this spot, even though this is not the same as who's winning Battle of BC, if you had to just like name like top 4 or top 5 like melee streamers, like who would those be? Like just like off the dome, like you're picking like people that you think in terms of like their talent as a streamer, not as a player. Because I feel like when you talk about Moki, like one of the things I've just from watching a stream is like I feel like he's easily the best streamer of the people who aren't like Mango and HBox basically. They're kind of like these like could basically completely transition out of melee into full time streaming and it would be okay. I feel like he would probably be my top 3, and I'm curious what you guys would where you would put him just off the top of your head.
Well, I think your YouTube would make you number 2, obviously behind me and Wheat at melee stats, and then 3 and 4 I'd go Mango HBox. Yeah,
Then who's 5?
And, let's
Moki.
say
I think Moki's a good pick. He's
I
very
think
good at
Koopa.
streaming.
You ever Koopa Troop 895? You ever watch him?
I've
Dude,
played Cooper Turbo before, but I've never watched him.
No cam. I think it's like every night. Dude, I don't know. He's on one. He analyzes anything Marth that's new. He'll be like, Zane just streamed, so we're gonna analyze it. And then he goes on, and then he plays he plays ranked, and it's like so clearly different than what he just watched. It's insane. He's such a smart guy. He's just like, oh, okay, so Zane does nair there. Interesting. I think that's to catch this. And then you watch him play, and he's just like upbeat all over the place and like running through people's shield. It's I watched him play Shroom last night, and he was just about to win game 2, and he made like a 3-stock comeback to do so, and then he just jumped off and tried to bear and died. I was like, what the fuck? And everyone said he was throwing. He's like, no, dude, I'm not throwing. This is just how I play. I would do that in tournament. So
I like
I don't know.
watching Koopa play Lucky on Mango Stream, where Lucky just doesn't say anything for like 3 minutes, but then gets hit by like tipper, like dash attack, a weak tipper up smash, and then or weak up smash into tipper forward smash. Then after all that silence, Lucky just goes, "What the fuck?" and
Dude,
then
seeing the I think the Koopa that's a great one. There's a Koopa one where it's just like he does up throw onto Dreamland platform and then does a up smash like tech chase. And I think up smashes again and then dares off of that up smash or something like that. Like dude, he's insane. I mean, he's the melee stance player. So of course he'll be.
Yeah,
But we'll
of
talk
course.
about that more when we have a Combo Breaker app, tournament where he's at. Hey, speaking of, you just gave us a good question, Radar. We've got some questions for you. We've got questions from our Patreon community. Edwin, I think you've got one, right?
Yeah, so this one comes from Ober, also a Falco player. Uh, Radar, how do the Melee community's need for perfection in posting analytical content affect your desire to continue posting Melee content?
So are you saying like the question is the community is too like nitpicky? Is that the kind of the idea of Ober's question that like it is that sort of what they're asking? Like,
Hmm. I don't want to put words necessarily in their mouth, but I do believe yes. I think they're hinting at like if there's a certain kind of pressure for technical precision and analytical content that demotivates or makes it difficult to continue producing content like that.
I think for me right now, just like that stuff is a factor whenever you're making a YouTube video. It's not a factor that's affecting me making melee content right now. Most of the reason I haven't been doing a bunch of melee content is more like health related. I've talked a bit about this with kind of like having pretty bad like chronic migraine stuff. So that kind of like is the main reason why I don't make that many YouTube videos. Um, I do think if I were to make a video again, one of the things I would probably try doing now is actually like uh, play testing isn't the right word, but like having it, like sending it to like Pipsqueak and a couple other people and being like, hey, am I getting anything wrong? So there definitely is like, that is something that you always have to be aware of. And I know like talking with other content creators like Walt and stuff, it can be something to demotivate you. But like on the flip side, like some stuff like melee people don't know. Like it just depends on what you're covering. Like if you cover something that has to do with like specific game mechanics, like I did a whole video on like how shield pressure stuff works. A lot of pro players don't even know that stuff. So like it just kind of depends on like what you're making content about. I would actually expect Ober would know about it though, because having seen Ober's content before, it's quite thorough. I don't know if that just like answers the question thoroughly, but it does
I think that was
matter.
good.
Not the main reason why I'm not making videos right now.
Well, I mean, we're all scared of getting Darwin dinged. I think it all comes down to.
Well, yeah, like that's the
Um,
thing is I wouldn't want to be on Twitter having someone kind of criticize me, and I've had people in the past be like, "Hey, you got this wrong," and it did make me realize like, "Oh, I need to do this differently." But I feel like I personally think like, well, if I get something wrong, like they're right to call me out, especially if it's trying to be educational. So, yeah.
well, I think that was a very good answer on what I believe was a very good question, and we're gonna go to the opposite of that with the next question from our good friend Anaconda. So Anaconda asks a bit of a bit of a weirdly worded question. What foods slash dishes where if lime ingredients replace the lemon ingredients would make the food slash dishes worse? And I think that I also want to ask, this is a wheat addition. I want to ask the inverse. Where are limes better than lemons in dishes? So,
I think there's a bunch of places where limes are better than lemons.
hmm,
Um, I
interesting.
think like a lot of
So you would say
Mexican
they're
food.
similarly good?
No, I would say like in like for like most like Mexican food that uses limes, it's usually better. And also like with certain cocktails, it can kind of go either way. Like if you're making like a Moscow Mule, like lime juice is better than lemon juice.
No,
Um,
100%. So
I
you
think
would
just
say lemons and limes are probably like if you were to rate all the fruit, we're probably like pretty close, right?
It's crazy that we're still doing this bit, but like I would probably still not do that because the thing about limes is like they just get like destroyed in the dessert tier, I feel like. They also get destroyed in like certain types of cuisine. So I think they
Like what?
they crush it in like Mexican food and certain kind of South American food, but then in other food they get crushed. And I feel like the amount of like cooking where they just don't
Do
match
you have
up
an
to
examples?
lemons.
You gave examples of where limes do better, but suddenly examples of where lemons do
Okay,
better.
like say like Italian food. I would
Yeah.
say a lot of like Japanese food. I would
So like
say
Thai.
yeah,
Actually,
like
What the fuck are you doing? Wait a second,
no,
you're jumping in.
not Thai. Like, hmm.
French food. Like there's like a lot of other cuisine um where like lemon is kind of used. And then yeah, like the entire dessert category, like to me, most most lime-based desserts like I'd rather have like a lemon meringue pie than a key lime pie, like that kind of thing. And I think that like is not an opinion just held by me. I think like lemon desserts, like you think of like lemon tarts, lemon bars, like there aren't the same kind of people getting hyped. People drink lemonade, not limeade. You get the idea. So they're not in the
I
same
got a
tier.
great idea for a startup.
Hit me.
Limeade.
That exists though. You know that exists, right?
No, I didn't.
Limeade?
I genuinely thought you were just doing a bit.
No, like it's a real thing, and people don't drink it as much. That's why it's not as popular. Like, because limes are whatever. I can't I
All right,
can't dignify this question with that serious of a response. So that's all I'll leave it at.
I'm dead
That's
serious.
kind
I
of
did not
rude
think
to
limeade was a
Anaconda.
thing.
He
Yeah, I
pays the
guess so.
price to get to ask questions.
It's okay. Anaconda already got his W earlier today.
True.
You'll have to be a
Anaconda,
patron if you
I'm
want
sorry.
to know that.
I'm sorry that your question was not deemed as serious, but I guess what we can
I
take away
still
from
answered
this-
it pretty seriously. Like,
Sure,
so,
no, you did. I guess we can take away that just being better in desserts means that they are two whole tiers different. The difference between Fox and non-wobbling ice climbers.
okay. No, I won't say anything.
Okay. All right. No one's forcing you to say anything. Here's one thing that will one of the last things that we'll do on the show, and I do want to hear what you're going to say on this. I'll give you some time to think. Is our unnamed segment, famously known as Touching Grass. Touching Grass is the place where we talk about what's going on in our lives that is not Smash related. You know, how often do we put ourselves out there in the world and we just talk about Smash? That's kind of how Smashers tend to be, but we're not that. We're more than that. Yeah, as we hinted, Edwin and I just had birthdays this weekend, same day, a year apart. Two Melee greats were born. And hey, a year after me, Pokimane, who probably will figure into the Melee Stats Extended universe at some point soon. I
Believe it.
have to imagine, right? But so to talk about some of the stuff, yeah, I mean, I had a birthday, got to see my family. That was really fun. Two of my nieces went to see Taylor Swift, and my other three nieces were super pissed that they didn't go. So there was some meltdowns happening, but other than that, I had a very good time. But if I had to talk about the thing that I've been doing the most in the past 2 weeks since our last episode, a birthday is just one day, so I probably wouldn't pick that. I've been doing something much dumber, much lamer, much nerdier, and something that I have focused on a lot is kind of how like time affects our perception of things, and usually I talk about how it changes our perception of culture and like art, which is very nerdy. But I'm fascinated by the idea of the views into the past that we have through art, and how that was different at the time, right? And how the times that we live in will feel different than the future, right? If you think about the 60s, you probably have a specific set of things. You go the Beatles, fucking Andy Warhol painting. You know, you've got the list. And it's interesting to think, in the 60s, did they feel that way? Did they think that those were the things? So what I've been doing is I've been going through, and I almost hit 20 straight years. So just the issue is that it was like different publications back then were publishing. But I went through almost 20 straight years of best of albums list for the end of the year. So people will publish the list of the 50 best albums of the year. And I kind of aggregated them and did some like weight in terms of like how many people give this one top 10, how many people give this one a ranking at all, stuff like that. And I've come up with like, quote unquote canons for each year. So it'll be like, these are the 12 albums that meant the most in 2006 to people who wrote about music. And it's really interesting to see. And it's kind of a cool time capsule for me to go through the albums and be like, oh, dude, I love this album in 2010 or whatever. Go through the stuff that I listened to when I was in high school. And then, basically follow my musical journey through looking at these albums. And also just, get a good look at what's changed, It's crazy to think that, time isn't that much different. But you look at, the things that people liked in 2019 feel kind of different than what they are now. And I love seeing stuff that we talk about now all the time that wasn't talked about at the time. And I think a good example is, the band 100 Gex, I think, is in the cultural zenith. What am I trying to say? Fucking landscape. It's in the cultural landscape a lot. And it was a band that, no one said was good when they came out. So it's cool to see how time changes our opinions on things. And my long-winded thing that I've been doing is, just basically spending hours and hours kind of compiling old dusty-ass lists and averaging them out and making fucking little things in Photoshop. So that is my answer, which I think is probably better than turning 28. Edwin, speaking of which, I did basically say how old you are, but I won't reveal it. I'll let you do so if you want it. But you had a birthday. Was that the thing that was going on for you these past weeks, or did you have something else?
Yeah, I want to talk about that. I had a great birthday. Woke up in the morning. My spouse gave me my gift. It was
Watch
a bunch
what you
of
say. There's one aspect of your birthday I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
No.
They got me a bunch of chocolates, just a bunch of small things. They got me I'm trying to remember. They got me a eye repair kit and everything, which are a glasses repair kit, eye repair kit. That's interesting. Yeah, a glass repair kit. They got me a charger. They got me a bunch of chocolates, which I love. I'm a big fan of chocolates. I went to hang out with my parents. We had cake. My mom made me her amazing rum cake recipe, which was awesome. And my dad surprised me with Game 7 tickets to basketball, where I got to see the superior Boston Celtics.
You know what? Shut the fuck up, dude. I literally never heard you talk about them. I heard you talk about them. You know what I've heard you say? I've heard you say that you don't care. I heard you say it's surprising you how little you care about.
So this kind of follows up into a point that I want to talk about, which is the fact that Wheat has actually been helping me catch up on basketball again. So I've been asking him to catch me on stuff that happened in the league, because I haven't been even when the Celtics were in the finals last year, I didn't really follow it very much because I'd fallen out of basketball. So it's been really fun kind of learning about things that happened since 2017 or so was the last time I really followed the sport. But yeah, my dad surprised me with Game 7 tickets. We got to see Jason Tatum drop a nuke on the city of
you and every rich asshole in Boston going out there.
Yeah, it was great.
Fucking drunk ass Sean in the crowd. Yeah, no, I can't tell you how many people
Dude,
I've seen come out of the woodworks. I can't tell you. No, you know I'm mad.
Whose team lost, dude? I had a better birthday
off.
than you. What can I say?
Dude. I can't tell you how many Boston fans I saw come out of the woodworks once you guys won. I was literally never heard so many people talk, and then suddenly you guys win, and everyone's like, "Dude, Boston rocks." Shut the fuck up.
I didn't.
You guys don't go through the pain. I have to watch my team fall apart, and guess what? Every single person who I talked to about sports, every Philly fan, they were pieces of shit. They were going, dude, I knew we were gonna lose since last week. I knew we were gonna lose since 2019. We of course were. Such weak ass pussy shit, and I hate to use that word, but that's what I saw.
Yeah, you're so mad that you're referring to you're literally saying things that
my family
Mech would say.
My family and my friends had the worst mindset possible, and it's just in conjunction with assholes like you who literally never talk about the Celtics suddenly talking their shit once they
I
win.
think it's so the reason I feel good about doing it now is because he brought up the Sixers and Joel Embiid on every other show.
Dude, I'm allowed to do that. I'm punching up. You're punching down.
How's this punching up?
You don't.
I just think it's funny. I just think
team.
it's funny that the one time I bring up basketball is the time that we happen to win. Like, even when the Sixers lost to the Celtics in the past, I like never brought it up. It's only now because it was
'Cause you don't
happening
care.
on my birthday that I thought it was really funny. I think you
It
come
just
out
goes
of
to
this
show
looking
how
worse
little
than
you
me.
care about them actually winning.
I think this is actually 2-0 for other people on the show over you. Between Radar with the super major dunk that he had on
Actually, it was not a dunk.
No, he owned you. I don't even think
He
you got a
didn't- he
like.
didn't own me.
I think he literally ratioed you 12-0.
You
I
know
think-
what? If you care so much about Radar, why don't you let him speak?
Well, that's a good
right
idea.
now he's here.
So
he's
so
quiet.
right now it's 2-0. We
No. Actually, this is
2-0
not
me
how-
and Radar above you.
this is not
You
how
also interrupted me in
conversations
the middle
work.
of my segment to just rant about the Sixers.
Yeah, because I knew you were gonna pull some bullshit.
No, dude, it's not bullshit.
So
Radar, Michael.
yeah,
Michael, do you have anything you'd like to say, Michael?
Yeah. So in terms of stuff I've been doing,
No. On what we were. No. Sorry. Go on.
wait,
Go
what?
on.
I'm confused.
Go on. Keep going, Radar. What were you saying?
Yeah, in terms of stuff I've been doing, I mean, besides playing Tears of the Kingdom, which has been really enjoyable, like genuinely very, very good. That's like a pretty common take, I know, but it really is. It's like worth buying a Switch over, but if you want, there's other ways to play it, of course. But yeah, so that's really good. I've been enjoying that. More broadly speaking, I've been doing a lot of music stuff. My Spotify hit 6K monthly listeners this month, so I'm pretty excited for that. It's like kind of solid numbers. I mean, it's not as exciting as when HBox himself said he liked my music, so that was... I'm kidding. He did say that, though. So yeah, working on music stuff. I've got some new songs coming out. Not to make this like a plug, but that's just something I've been doing a lot and really enjoying. It's yeah, it's been fun. So that's a big thing. And then yeah, Zelda's been really fun. I literally just beat the boss before we started this episode, so I haven't even grabbed the
Nice.
heart container.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Speaking of plugs, let's transition into that. Where can people find you if they want to find your other stuff, your Melee work?
Yeah, you can find me on youtube.com/radarssbm. I stream sometimes on Twitch as well, but not so much. Like also /radarssbm. Twitter is radarssbm. The music is Radar Press Record, and I feel like I'm forgetting some core one, but that's where people can find me.
Your
I do want to still
Mastodon?
do some more Melee content. It's just yeah, there's just been a bunch of stuff kind of going on at once. So yeah.
And I believe you have a stream coming up, right?
For Superbad, is that the question you're asking, or?
I heard that you and a guest are going to do a stream titled "Tears of the Kingdom," spelled Tiers, and it's going to be kind of a like a tier list type thing, really cozy, kind of like Cozy Tube. That's a thing. Real cozy hours. I hear you and a friend are going to do some tiering. Is that true?
What's the meme of like the kids? They're sitting around in a circle and they're like, "Is Fortnite overrated?" Is that what it is?
Fortnite,
Like,
yeah.
do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be us. We'll be sitting on a couch and we'll have
It's super bad.
yeah, this is super bad overrated, and we'll have our arms folded.
Look, I'm not going to say that there's going to be a stream of Edwin and Radar ranking movies of the 2000s. And hey, more maybe. Once you start ranking, can't stop. But
It's true.
is there a possibility?
I think us doing some kind of content thing was something I was thinking about, just because like, literally like, Anoke is gonna be sleeping. Like everyone's gonna be sleeping like on a bed that's just like over there. So, not exactly far from where we do stuff, but
Maybe that's the content. Maybe it's Edwin sleep cam.
Edwin sleep cam. I think there's some power there. Put up a tripod. Live stream it.
Anyway, it seems super cool that you two are going to be hanging out. I hope to get some content out of it. And yeah, if I know that we kind of had a lot of talking. Maybe you didn't talk as much as your past episodes, but if anyone liked what Radar was saying, go follow him and check out the music, because I know that people don't really know of you as a musician. And I think that if you're looking for lo-fi, there's no reason why they shouldn't be. So check that out.
Box
And,
approved, right? Like,
Well, I wasn't going to say that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Our fans might not view that as a positive.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
Anyway, speaking of something that has been not HBox approved, but not HBox disapproved. We're just kind of in that Schrodinger's HBox right now. You can follow us. You can follow our content. We go live at twitch.tv/MeleeStats. Right? Oh my god, I forgot. We're Melee Stats, not Melee Stats Pod,
yes,
right?
we are.
Dude, we gotta fucking do that. We're Melee Stats on Twitch. You can watch our episodes live. They go on to the Melee Stats archive after they air. Melee Stats YouTube is where our long-form content lives. You can find us on Twitter at Melee Stats Pod, which is different than Melee Stats. What are we doing? Melee Stats Pod, we post weekly or daily results. We post weekly articles on MeleeStats.co. And hey, we post Twitter announcements about the players that we send to majors. I don't know if anyone was paying attention, but you would have seen that we announced Koopa Troopa at Koopa Troopa 895 going to some events later in the summer. And we have an announcement this week. If you are listening to this after the episode airs, the announcement's probably out, so you can check it out over there. And MeleeStats.co is where we're going to have our articles such as Monday Morning Marth and When's Melee. If you love everything that we do and you just want to support us in the best way possible, patreon.com/MeleeStats. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back next week to talk about all the stuff that happened at Battle of BC. Look forward to Combo Breaker and talk about probably Fresh Cut again. I don't know. We love to do that now. but we'll be back to talk about that then. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for being on. And I think we can all agree, fuck the Boston Celtics. All right, everyone.
Let's go,
Peace.
Boston.